1.6 DC 130 horsepower R9M. 1.6 DC 160 horsepower R9M. Renault Espace 5 is most often found with the 1.6-liter R9M turbo diesel. There is a 130 horsepower version and 160 horsepower accordingly, one or two turbines. You need to be very careful with this engine, especially with the twin-turbo version. But first things first, so literally all 1.6 DC engines are forced to eliminate the appearance of oil smudges on the cover 135027147R of the timing chain drive. The cover must be removed and installed with new sealant. You need to be careful about the cooling system. The radiator needs to be cleaned of dirt and fluff. After replacing the antifreeze, the system must be ventilated, the pipes must be sealed and securely fastened. Otherwise it will lead to overheating and cracks will appear in the block between cylinders 3 and 4. The heat exchanger 147357086R of the EGR system is weak and threatens two troubles, due to where in the area of the rod, a leak of untreated gases appears, which are sucked into the cabin through the ventilation system. It is impossible to drive with such an unpleasant aroma. The heat exchangers are already under warranty at 90,000 kilometers. Often they have to be changed at just such an interval. Just inspect it on the lift. First of all, it is heavily covered with soot. Plus, the walls and joints of the heat exchanger itself corrode, which causes antifreeze leaks both outside and into the recirculating gas circuit. But there are literally no cases of water hammer on these engines. Most likely the engine will overheat and seize if all the antifreeze leaks out during a highway run. In the Megan 4 review, we said that the cylinder blocks of the 1.6 DC engines were changed under warranty because with runs up to 100,000 kilometers, cracks in the block often appeared, causing antifreeze to get into the pan. The cracks ran from the crankshaft supports up through the cooling jacket. Improved and freed from this problem, 1.6 DC engine blocks with one turbine have a number starting with the symbols E4E4, and for the biturbo version E4D4. The number is stamped on the pad on the cylinder block next to the right engine mount. It is also rare with 1.6 DC engines that a problem occurs that should have remained a thing of the past: crankshaft bearings turn. It is believed that this situation is caused by a worn dual-mass flywheel, 415,079,610, which costs about $800. By the way, the crankshaft pulley of the 1.6 DC engine is also a damper. It brakes at about 150,000 kilometers. Usually owners reach it until the last moment, when the outer race stops rotating due to a crack along the entire circumference of the damper. Smoke will come out from under the hood while the engine is running, and the instrument panel will light up with fault indicators. A new original 123032762R or aftermarket crankshaft pulley for this engine will cost between $130 and $300. Loyal fans of Renault and owners of cars with a 1.6 DC engine have also noticed that over time, dips and kicks appear during acceleration, which can easily be confused with problems with a robotic transmission. Often, slightly floating idle speeds are observed. However, in fact the cause is poor contact in the injector connectors. The contact chips from the injectors need to be removed, cleaned with a contact cleaner, and even the pins in the connectors on the injectors themselves must be slightly bent. The timing chain 130700060R of the 1.6 DC engine serves differently. Perhaps the reason is that the confusion is caused by twisted real runs. For some, it begins to rattle when the odometer shows a mileage of just over 150,000 kilometers. For others, the noise appears at 250,000 kilometers. There are instances where the chain lasted even longer and rattled after a mileage of more than 400,000 kilometers. 2.0 Blue DC 160 horsepower M9R. 2.0 Blue DC 200 horsepower M9R. The 2-liter diesel engine is very rare. In essence, this is the older brother of the 1.6 DC engine, only it did not have problems with cracking of the cylinder block. But such engines have a urea injection system, which fools your head and does not allow you to operate the car normally until you change its tank or until you service it, i.e. disable it programmatically. The 5th generation Espace is very rarely found on sale with petrol engines. For example, at the time of this review, there were 35 diesel units for one gasoline Espace. What is this connected with? People don't trust French downsizing gasoline engines. And their choice in Europe is also scarce. 1.6 Terrace 200 horsepower M5M. In general, the choice of gasoline engines for this car is very meager. From the very beginning of sales, which was from the spring of 2015 to the summer of 2017, only one 1.6-liter turbo engine was offered. This engine was borrowed from small sport-oriented Renaults, where the reliability of this unit is beyond doubt. But in order for the 1.6 Terrace turbo engine not to let you down, you need to change its oil early and listen to the timing chain. They say she can barely survive 100,000 kilometers. 1.8 Terrace 225 horsepower M5 PT. Since mid-2017, the 5th generation Espace received a new turbo engine, 1.8 liters and 225 horsepower. So far this engine does not cause any particular concern, but as part of the recall campaign, they began to change the turbocharger bypass valve drive, i.e., the wastegate valve, due to a loud rustling noise after the morning startup. No other specific sores have yet been identified with this engine, but we would advise changing the oil in it every 8,000 kilometers so that there are no problems with oil wastage or premature wear of the chain. DW5 7 Street Preselective gearbox with gasoline engines. DW6 6 Street Preselective gearbox with diesel engines. Renault Espace 5 has never been equipped with classic hydromechanical automatic transmissions. Instead, preselective transmissions with wet multi-plate clutches were offered. In general, fans of Espace and other Renaults with these transmissions speak very highly of them. Despite everyone, DW5 and DW6 transmissions run even more than 500,000 kilometers without problems. They need to change oil that meets a specific specification, WSSM2C936A, every 2 years or every 45,000 kilometers. At the same time, the filter is changed for DW6 to 152093920R or 152004740R. It takes about 6.2 liters of oil to change. If, when changing the oil, fogging is detected on the plastic pan, and it is located not at the bottom, but on the side, then you need to change it, and not just the gasket. Moreover, they are sold together, 313E88964R. And such a purchase will cost $250. PA4 6-speed manual transmission. The manual transmission on the Espace 5 is a time-tested 6-speed. Box part paired with it is a dual-mass flywheel, 123000636R, the cost of which reaches up to $1,000. A worn flywheel, as already noted, may well shorten the service life of the crankshaft liners. The mechanics themselves may also suffer. By the way, the oil should be changed in a manual transmission. This requires about 2 liters of gear oil. Espace 5 has inherited the problem of all its relatives. The main cooling fan bushing wears out. The backlash of the impeller and the electric motor itself increases. Everything can end not only in noise and vibration, but also in the combustion of the electric motor due to overload. The original new fan 214816969R costs over $1,000. There are a couple of replacements for $400. Traditional repair methods have also been invented, involving filling the bushing with lubricant and even introducing an electric motor of a suitable size. The air conditioning system uses expensive and flammable, but very environmentally friendly Freon 1234U. It can be easily replaced with regular and non-ecological Freon R134A. The battery on the Espace 5 is an AGM type, not cheap and, as expected, more durable. But in fact, even such a battery fails literally every 2 years. It is believed that the battery cannot withstand increased loads when the start-stop system stops, the motor and the charge disappear. It is advised to disable the start-stop system, but this does not have much effect. We have already talked in detail, and now we will remind you once again that when inspecting these Espace on a lift, you need to pay attention to the dryness of the preselective transmission. If the car is diesel, we inspect the front cover, the EGR heat exchanger, and don't forget about the damper pulley. At the rear, all versions of the Renault Espace 5 have a torsion beam. The differences are that cars with 4 control, i.e. with a mechanism for turning the rear wheels, the rear axles 430192902R are not attached to the beam rigidly, but through several silent blocks. The required turns of the rear wheels by several degrees are achieved precisely by the elasticity of the silent blocks. No other hinges are provided. At the moment, these silent blocks are not a concern, but they are not sold separately from the rear wheel axle. A new trunnion costs about $800 each. The 4-control system actuator, 521530049R, has so far served without any complaints, but they were often replaced under warranty. Its price is colossal, half the cost of a used Espace 5. Vehicles with the 4-control system are equipped with adaptive shock absorbers on all wheels. Rear adaptive shock absorbers, 562109801R, are about $500 each. Passive ones, 562102387R, are much cheaper, about $200, but the supporting silent blocks 550441331R, for such beams are completely identical. They are quite expensive, $270 for the original or about $80 for a substitute. By the way, the rear beam can also creak on the Espace 5. Craftsmen have come up with a way to make it quieter. They drill a hole and fill the beam with either used engine oil or graphite lubricant. In the front suspension, the rear silent blocks of the levers, 545050303R, are rather weak. Renault does not sell them separately, so you need to choose from an aftermarket one. Something decent costs about $20. How long they will serve is unclear. The original silent blocks show deep cracks already at 80,000 kilometers. The first replacement of levers was done by dealers under warranty. The original front shock absorbers, 543027894R, cost $270. There are replacements, and they are much cheaper. Adaptive shock absorbers have no analogs and cost $600 apiece, 5432558R. Shock absorber support bearings 543258271R last a long time and sell for up to $60 for the original. Front axle wheel bearings 402026199R are terribly expensive. At $670 for the original and about $300 for a decent replacement. But they last a long time. In principle, the maintenance of the chassis of the Espace with passive shock absorbers and without 4 control is no more expensive than that of the Megane 4. Everything is fine with the body paint of the Renault Espace 5, but over time the gaps around the perimeter of the trunk door change. This is a standard problem for all Renaults of all these generations. The hinges sag. But they can be adjusted. And it's better to take care of the adjustments early, before the trunk lid that has sagged to the bumper has rubbed off the paint, and literally all Espace have chrome peeling off from the decor inside the taillights. The mirror folding mechanism, or rather the mirror hinge, can become sour in the autumn-winter period. The mirror housings are not very difficult to disassemble here, i.e. you can get to the hinge and lubricate it well. The contents and interior design of Espace are well known from Megane's Talismans and other Renault models. By the way, the interior materials are quite high quality. With proper care, even leather upholstery on cars with a mileage of more than 200,000 kilometers looks literally like new. Perhaps now is the time to say that the mileage of these cars is often adjusted. However, having the VIN number, you can find the mileage readings for the last maintenance at a European Renault dealer. Fans of French cars can help with this, and they will literally check the car against the database for a thank you. These are such good people. If you wish, you can dig deeper with the help of specialists in diagnosing these machines. As a rule, the original mileage remains in the memory of the ABS unit. It is difficult and expensive to correct there, but it can be counted. In general, don't be fooled. Let's pay attention to the glove compartment. In the Renault Espace 5 it is made in the form of a retractable shelf or, as we say in Belarus, in the form of a drawer. The touch button is responsible for opening. So, over time, the glove compartment will stop opening. The button will not respond to pressing. The reason is quite simple. The wires in the harness extended to it were broken. To open the non-opening glove compartment, you need to disassemble the right end of the front panel. There in the depths you will find the glove compartment locking tab. Click on it and you can move the entire shelf forward. Then look under it for a single harness of 3 wires, remove the overall braid and be surprised at the broken wires. A soldering iron will help you. With its help you can restore the integrity of the wires. If you suddenly find that the seat heating has stopped working, and the breakdown usually begins with the backrest heating turning off. Also look for broken wires. They burst in the bend area between the seat and the back. Problems rarely occur with the steering wheel contact group, which is also called the steering cable 255545857R. Rich versions of the Espace 5 are equipped with a head-up display in the form of a screen rising behind the visor of the instrument panel. This is a simple piece of plexiglass that reflects readings from the screen located underneath it. The plastic gears of the lifting screen, and the lid that covers it after lowering, really don't like it when the screen is closed manually or when closing is interfered with by pieces of paper or anything else that have fallen in there. As a result, the screen begins to rise and fold with jerks or does not reach its extreme positions. Soon the servo will stop working altogether. We have not yet heard of any successful repairs to the projection screen servo. At auto wrecking yards this part costs under $200. A new one is 8 times more expensive. The Airlink multimedia system is a cool thing. As we have already noted, despite its simplicity, it has a lot of possibilities that are being developed by enthusiasts. Here you can simply download the same Yandex.Maps, add data about speed cameras and other local points of interest. This is done by enthusiasts, for which Renault fans are very grateful. What we want to draw your attention to, the link does not glitch or freeze if the firmware is up to date, and it can only be bricked during an incorrect flashing. Only specialists in this brand can revive Renault multimedia with a blank screen.